Уважаеми колеги, pomaže Bog. Privet iz Serbije. I skoro budu govoriti po teme na anglijskom jeziku. The connection between the legacy of First Ecumenical Council and the area of present-day Serbia was noticed immediately after the council was held, as Arius and his followers were exiled from Alexandria to Illyricum, Roman province of Pannonia Secunda, where he began his activity, which resulted in the fact that after the First Ecumenical Council, although Arianism was condemned as a heretical teaching, the three episcopal see in Belgrade, Osijek, and Sremska Mitrovica were occupied by bishops who professed the Arian theological teaching about the Son as the second person of the Holy Trinity. Due to these circumstances, throughout the 4th century, several councils were held in the area of present-day Serbia, and which decisions were made about what the true and normative Christian confession would look like, based on Nicene Creed. Thus, in the Serbian lands, from the very beginning of the era of ecumenical councils, debates and council decisions on theological teachings and dogmas of church took place. As the power of the Roman Empire weakened in Balkan Peninsula, especially since the division of the empire into East and West, first in 395 and then in 476, so did the interest in theology among the clergy in these areas due to decadence of society, and that in turn to the devastation by barbarian peoples. The period of renewal in the Balkans occurred during the reign of Emperor Justinian the Great, which was not directly related to the legacy of First Ecumenical Council, but rather with the establishment of Justiniana Prima and Justiniana Secunda. There was renewal of church life and jurisdictional norms that were respected within the Roman Empire. Emperor Justinian the Great inherited this principle from Emperor Constantine the Great and continued to apply it until the mission of Saints Cyril and Methodius. The state of church in these regions has been insufficiently researched due to the lack of material and narrative historical sources from this period. From the 8th century until the rise to power of holy ruling Nemanjić dynasty, Serbian dynasty, and late Middle Ages, church life in Serbian lands increasingly flourished that took shape in dogmatic, ecclesiological, and jurisdictional sense. In the Middle Ages, the memory of First Ecumenical Council among the Serbian people was explicitly expressed in the Typikon of Saint Sava and in Nomocanon, but also in the fresco paintings of Dečani Monastery, in a cycle of fresco depicting the ecumenical councils, from 1st to 6th council. The construction of Dečani Monastery lasted between 1326 and 1335, while the frescoes were completed around 1348. The construction of the Church of Christ the Almighty lasted several years, and the main builder was Vita, a Franciscan from Kotor, nowadays Montenegro. The works were supervised by Archbishop of Serbia Danilo II, who worked to build and strengthen the church, gathering a large number of artistic and skilled craftsmen. King Stefan Dechansky himself laid the cornerstone of this monasterial church, and in 1330 he issued the charter of foundation with which he generously endowed his endowment. After the death of King Stefan, his work was continued by his son, Stefan Dušan, and construction of Dečani was completed in 1335. The fresco painting of the First Ecumenical Council depicts Emperor Constantine the Great and the four of then bishops, Archbishop Alexander of Alexandria, Pope Sylvester of Rome, Bishop Metrophans of Constantinople, and Archbishop Eustathius of Antioch, while next to them in separate scene are the two groups of figures, on the one hand the Orthodox fathers, and the second the heretics, the Arians, who were condemned at this council for their erroneous Christological teaching. During the long period from the late Middle Ages to the final liberation from the Turkish occupation, there was no mention of the memory of the ecumenical councils at all. As the restored Patriarchate of Peć, 1920, the United Serbian Orthodox Church marked the 1600th anniversary of holding of the First Ecumenical Councils in Nicaea, and thus demonstrated the spirit of tradition. At the proposal of Bishop Kirill of Boka Kotorska, the Holy Synod of Bishops of the Serbian Orthodox Church adopted in December 1924 a resolution of celebration of this anniversary of the First Ecumenical Council, namely that solemn divine service be held in all churches on the occasion, and the epistle to be written by Bishop Nikolai Velimirovich of Ohrid be read in all churches, and also that this epistle be forwarded to all Eastern Patriarchs in the form of greetings, that a brochure be compiled about the First Ecumenical Council in connection with Creed, with an icon of Saints Constantine and Helen on the first page, and the icon of First Ecumenical Council also, and an icon of Saint Nicholas be made for distribution to the people. That all theological schools organize academies, spiritual concerts, and lectures, so that the people understand the importance of this council for the church, and that special lessons on the Council of Nicaea be held for students in religious education in state schools on the day of jubilee celebration, and then that everyone go together to the solemn service in the church. At the session of Holy Synod of Bishops, it was decided that on May the 21st and also 3rd June 1925, when the Orthodox Church celebrates the feast of Saints Constantine and Helena, a solemn celebration of the anniversary will be held with a holy liturgy at which the epistle will be read. All decisions of the Holy Synod of Bishops and the Council from the end of 1924 and the beginnings of the 1925 published in all periodicals of Serbian Church. The official documents of the Holy Council of Bishops of the Serbian Orthodox Church on the occasion of celebration of this anniversary was the epistle published in the Gazeta of Serbian Orthodox Patriarchate in May 1925, written by the hand of Holy Bishop Nikolai on behalf of the Serbian Patriarch Dimitrije. After the verses from the Nicene Creed, the Serbian bishops emphasized that the fathers of the first council began with faith in life-giving Holy Spirit, and by connecting the saints who participated in this council with Serbian saints, they came to the conclusion that this celebration in 16 centuries of Christian history of suffering, heroism, and greatest victory. The Council of Nicaea, according to the epistle, was the first great battle of spiritual struggle and victory, which would continue at subsequent ecumenical council. The most important victory is the victory of faith, that is the adoption of the Nicene Creed. Heroism is steadfast in faith in time of persecution, but also in peace, because the killing of the body gave way to the killing of the soul, which is overcome only through fasting and prayer in church, learning and practicing faith. The saints achieved all this by receiving the gift and strength for the resurrected Jesus Christ. The Serbian hierarchs reminded all Serbian Orthodox Christians of the great past of Orthodoxy, so that everyone could participate in celebration and spiritual joy of this great jubilee, so that the Holy Spirit would enlighten us all with the light with which he illuminated the Holy Fathers of the Council of Nicaea. In the following, the editor of a gazette, Archpriest Miloš Parenta, writes about the magnificence of the celebration of the First Ecumenical Council and emphasizes the continuity of Christology teaching from then until the 20th century, because Christianity could never be separated from Christ, and it does not exist without Christ. After the dogmatic introduction, there followed the historical account of the events at the First Council, which marked an epoch in the internal life of the Church. The celebration of this jubilee of this council is a celebration of the victorious spread. Here, the missionary component among today's pagans is emphasized, and of divine origin of Christianity. Finally, it is a celebration and confirmation of the apostolic succession on the hierarchy of Orthodox Church and the victory of Christian clergy over the state authorities of the Roman Empire. In this way, at the time of First Ecumenical Council, the church-state status was defined in their relation, which was conceived by Emperor Constantine the Great. The state does not interfere in internal church affairs, but rather helps them. At the Council of Nicaea, the Christian spirit won victory over all natural orders, which is the foundation of the world Christian culture, and any true progress of these natural orders, especially within the state. With this celebration, the Serbian Church also cherishes its autocephaly within the family of all Orthodox local churches and helps the general interests of universal ecumenical orthodoxy by preserving the teaching on faith and morality, dogmas and holy canons, the church discipline of the universal church, and by submitting its own special interests and needs to the decision of the church. Therefore, the Serbian Church celebrates the anniversary of Council of Nicaea, cooperates in all general affairs of the Universal Church, including in organization and convening of the future 8th Ecumenical Council as soon as all general circumstances permit. Given the changes that have occurred in the Church throughout history and due to various circumstances and temptations at the beginning of the 20th century, two options were presented to the first hierarchs of the local Orthodox churches: the convocation of special council of the local churches or the convocation as of a single general or ecumenical council of the Orthodox Church. The proposal was to convene such a council and hold it in any center of one of the local Orthodox churches. Talks about convening an ecumenical council begin even before the First World War. But after the signing of the peace, there were restarted starting January 1920, when the patriarchal and council epistle of the Patriarch of Constantinople to the churches of Christ throughout the world was published. In April 1922, the Synod of Serbian Orthodox Church exchanging ideas with the representative of the Patriarchate of Constantinople on the convening of an ecumenical council determinate all the issues that were later confirmed as urgent by the Council of the Serbian Orthodox Church in its session and later accepted by the clergy of the Third Regular Assembly. At the invitation of the Patriarch of Constantinople, Meletios Metaxakis, from May 10 to June the 8, 1923, a Pan-Orthodox Congress was held in Constantinople. It was attended by representatives of Ecumenical Patriarchate, the Church of Cyprus, Church of Greece, Romanian Church, and the Serbian Orthodox Church, which was represented by the Patriarch of Serbia, Milutin Milankovic, professor of mechanics at the University of Belgrade. Due to the great popular conflicts after the October Revolution 1917, representatives of the Russian Orthodox Church were unable to attend this council. Telegrams arrived from the patriarchs of Antioch, Alexandria, and Jerusalem, as all three local churches from the east considered the Meletius IV had been canonical appointing to the see of Constantinople. At this 1923 conference, it was proposed that the anniversary of Council of Nicaea be celebrated in 2 years, in 1925. And decisions were made on the following issue. All those present at this conference regret for the decision to depose Patriarch Tikhon of Moscow and all Russia. The sixth resolution mentioned the request that Ecumenical Patriarchate take the initiative to convene an ecumenical council. Excuse me. The Council of Serbian Orthodox Church authorized the Serbian Patriarch and the Synod to propose, in accordance with the decision of Pan-Orthodox Conference, the celebration of anniversary of Council of Nicaea in birthplace of Holy Emperor Constantine, Niš, where the Ecumenical Council would also be convened. At the 1923 conference in Constantinople, it was proposed to celebrate the anniversary of Ecumenical Council of Nicaea in 1925. So the Ministry of Religion and Synod of Serbian Orthodox Church held a conference in early 1924, at which it was decided to send an invitation to all Eastern Patriarchates to hold an ecumenical council in Serbia. Minister of Religion of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovene, now country, of that time, without the consent of representative of the Synod of the Serbian Orthodox Church, prepared the ground for some Orthodox churches, periodicals, journals, and newspapers in Serbian lands in 1925, and later dealt with the topic of ecumenical council due to its topicality, namely the celebration of anniversary of Council of Nicaea, but very few authors deal with historical facts or researches in the theological and historical scientific field, but rather with arguments due to the emergency of the idea of convening a new ecumenical council. In addition to some announcements, there was this belief among the Orthodox clergy in Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenia that the ecumenical council would meet in Niš in 1925 because the terrain for such a thing had not been prepared. Church newspapers wrote before the session of Council of Serbian Orthodox Church in the fall of 1924 that the issue and convening an ecumenical council would be resolved on the occasion, but doubts were expressed that it would be held due to rivalry between the churches, especially between Patriarchate of Constantinople and the Russian Orthodox Church. The Serbian Orthodox press commented that the convening of an ecumenical council was impossible due to impossibility of participation of Russian Orthodox Church due to new historical events in Russian Empire, namely the change of the political regime and the strengthening of communist power. Miloš Parenta, editor of Gazette, the official newspaper of Patriarchate of Serbian Orthodox Church, also considered that the time was very opportune for the convening of the Ecumenical Council, primarily due to the situation in the Russian Church. An article about the First Ecumenical Council was also written by Maric, teacher of the St. Sava Theological Seminary in Belgrade, speaking about the transformation of Christianity in the 4th century and the importance of Council of Nicaea for Christology. Archbishop Dusan Jakšić agreed that convening of Ecumenical Council was impossible due to the situation in the Russian Orthodox Church, but he was against the views on the need for the Council to resolve issue of church discipline. In 1925, Professor Filaret Granic wrote a study, and it was the most important memory of this council among Serbs, and in the magazine Bratstvo, a magazine for religious and popular enlightenment in Sarajevo, nowadays Bosnia and Herzegovina, published by the Brotherhood of St. Sava in 1925. This book was presented. This was repeated in monthly magazine in the next few years. Then priest Stevan Dimitrijević, as a dean of Orthodox Theological Faculty in Belgrade, wrote an article on the topic of the celebration of the church in the Journal of Serbian Church, in which he spoke about the Christian in the 1st century, then emphasized the reign of Constantius the Chlorus, and moved on the detailed description of the state and religion policies of Constantine the Great, his son, based on the writings of Eusebius of Caesarea from York, 306, through the victory over Maxentius in 312, and the vision of the cross, then the Edict of Milan, and attitude towards Christians, but also toward pagans after that, in order to analyze the First Ecumenical Council, emphasizing Arius' heretical activity as the main reason for the convening and the decisions of the Council itself, and the brief interpretation of the canons, with conclusion about the contribution of the Council of Nicaea to development of whole Christianity. The conclusion of this work was the celebration of this council is significant, as are the Holy Emperor Constantine the Great and the fathers of the First Ecumenical Council, who are celebrated every year in divine service. It is interesting that Archpriest Dimitrijević used the Russian translation of the writings of Eusebius of Caesarea, since he was already familiar with these editions as a student in Russia. The first issue of Journal Theology, Bogoslovlje, in Belgrade, the Journal of Orthodox Theological Faculty, published in 1926, also featured a study by Professor Filaret Granic. In the journal Bogoslovlje, Filaret Granic discussed how the problem of the Melitian Schism was resolved at the First Ecumenical Council. The author writes the study based on research of Nicodim Milash and the Hefele. In the second half of the 20th century, Bishop Atanasie Jeftić, as professor of patrology in Belgrade, wrote about the fathers of the First Ecumenical Council in his book Patrology. Since he came to the Department of Church History in the last decade of the 20th century, Dr. Radomir Popović has focused his research on the period of ecumenical councils, and especially on the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea. This is evidenced by many studies. Professor Popovic, as the head of Department of Church History, organized 2 international scientific conferences organized by the Orthodox Theological Faculty of the University of Belgrade, with the topic The Church in Era of Saint Constantine the Great, Belgrade 2030, and the Academy of Orthodox Church for Arts and Conservation, with the topic Saint Constantine the Great in Historical and Artistic Memory, held in Niš in 2012. He's a participant, Professor Popovic is a participant in a series of lectures organized by the Serbian Academy of Science and Arts in Belgrade on the occasion of anniversary of Edict of Milan. His successor, Professor Popovic's successor at the Department of Church History at the Faculty of Theology in Belgrade, has researched and analyzed the life of the Holy Emperor Constantine the Great, as shown by published studies. The Serbian Orthodox Church, as an autocephalous church in the Middle Ages, has always been committed to the conciliar way of the functioning and continue with conciliar make decision, even when it was very difficult multi-century period of Turkocracy in the modern era, along theologians who were educated in foreign theological schools, a spirit of tradition and a return to the Holy Fathers, especially those from the period of ecumenical councils, has been independently developed. This is indicated by the large production of studies on various topics from the first and the other ecumenical councils, education in Serbian Orthodox seminaries and at the Orthodox Theological Faculty in Belgrade has always been based on the traditional way of church life. So the contribution of professors in all subjects that were closely related to the ecumenical councils was enormous because from the beginning their students were able to understand both the decision of the ecumenical councils in their historical context, but also the application of all canons in their life and life of church in which they were clergy. A special feature of church life was application of the mentality of the fathers of the ecumenical councils in modern era. And the best example of this is the agreement of Serbian bishops to convene a new ecumenical council at the beginning of 20th century, at which all the debts of the modern Christians and the modern church of Christ would be resolved. In this way, the Serbian Orthodox Church remembered the First Ecumenical Council, both on dogmatic and canonical level, but it also contributed to the fact that in the 19th and 21st century, decisions of the ecumenical councils are now applied to modern problems and the mentality of the modern man. Спасибо большое.